Yeah. So now you started in Minnesota and you live in San Diego now?
I do. I've lived here for about a decade now.
Yeah. Okay.
So I didn't detect like a real heavy Minnesota accent. I've known a few people from Minnesota, and
I want to say my first reaction was to say thank you. But it's kind of like more like thank you for not laughing.
oh,
Well, I detected just a shade. Have you worked at not sounding Minnesota or Minnesota?
I did work at sounding not Minnesota after I moved to San Diego because sometimes people would burst out laughing and say, "You're like from the movie Sparkle."
right. I love
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah. So I tried to tone it down a little bit, maybe too much for the TV show because really, we say that we're from Minnesota and just moved to La Jolla, but oh well.
Yeah.
So Fargo, was that Frances McDermott, Fargo?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's one of my favorite actors. I love her a lot.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was she actually pregnant while filming that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
Her husband was like a stay-at-home husband. It was like taking care of her and making her coffee in the mornings.
Kind of loved the way she slept with that guy while she was on the trip as a favor. Kind of like, we're so polite in Minnesota. Yeah, so I gotta do it. Sorry, I know that went into Swedish Chef there.
Right. I was thinking of puppets.
Yeah.
With the big bushy eyebrows.
But, the Swedish Chef.
The Swedish Chef.
Yeah. Well, that's my favorite Muppet character. So, him and Animal. It's between him and Animal.
How do you, Jesse the Body Ventura?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't be Minnesotan without a Jesse Ventura.
Right. The governor of the state.
Yes.
Hey, Aaron.
Yeah. He was one of our better ones too.
Yeah. Well, he's not in office anymore, right? I mean, that's been
No.
quite a while. But yeah, he had that show where he was like debunking he was like kind of stoking the fires of different conspiracy theories and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I like it. Big personality, big wrestler. But here's a guy.
He was a libertarian, right?
Yeah. Hello, Aaron.
Hello.
I'm Shelley.
Hi, Shelley. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too.
I got 4 episodes of the Smartlys. I enjoyed them.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm halfway through.
Right.
Yeah, you almost got to Mars.
Yeah.
Oh,
there's a
spoiler alert.
Mars is the 5th episode. That's the name of it. So there's not too much of a spoiler alert.
Okay.
Well,
I'll let it slide.
So we're talking to Shelley Smartly of the Smartly, which can be seen on Tubi and Plex, and I'm assuming on some other streaming services by now, right? So
absolutely, yeah. We're also on Pzaz TV and Metro TV, and we're available for rent on Exposure Plus TV.
Oh, okay. So Aaron's seen the first 2. I saw Lisa and I watched 4 or 4.
Yeah.
And then I listened to 3 and 4 on because you offer it as a podcast as well. So
the audio track is a podcast. Yes.
Right.
The podcast is the same as the show, just
exactly.
The audio? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I was going to download the podcast as well, but if it's the same as the show, I won't need to, I suppose.
Well, what's interesting is I think everybody experiences it differently. We actually have some people who prefer the podcast, but what you miss in the podcast is you don't see the stalker and you don't see the kitchen. You don't see
the stalker's so much fun.
La Jolla views.
Yeah.
Stalkers. He's one of my favorite parts for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Like he looks like he might have followed you down from Minnesota down to San Diego or something. It's like he came from a fair distance, it seems like. But yeah, it's funny to see him camping out there in the background. Like Eric are talking.
Trying to hide behind things.
And, initially I thought that was like a picture above the fireplace. And then all of a sudden some guy's looking in the window.
Right. I absolutely love him. He's played by Jim Winkler, who was a San Diego stand-up comedian, and now he's moved up to Nevada. But thankfully, because of the way we do the show, he's able to still be in the show. And I absolutely, he's the best stalker a person could ever have. And he's very benign, and he has his own motivations. And as the show goes on, you'll learn what's going on and why he's stalking me. He's actually stalking me to help keep our marriage together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was hired as an anti-wedding planner by my mother. And by giving Eric some competition for my affections, it kind of keeps both rows in the water for Eric. So that's how you keep it going for 50 years, because, in the show, the next day is always our 50th anniversary.
Every time.
Right.
And it's hard to keep that spice and that spark going for 50 years, let me tell you.
Well, it's not quite 50. You're a day away.
Well, no.
What?
You're always a day away from 50.
We're
You're not quite 50.
29 years in January.
How many?
Sorry, we'll be 29 years in January.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. You're over halfway there to our 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
Right. We'll get there, I'm sure. Yeah, we'll get there. It's like the
Mid-70s.
dollar bill in the commercial that's like dangling the dollar. Almost got it.
We have reached
Or the
the
end of the
yeah,
year
I'm
starts.
not getting naked in front of anybody else's stage.
Although, well, never mind. There's a story. But I'll keep it to myself. Just yesterday, the guy came over. She was doing the wonderful.
I was wearing swim trunks and a sports bra.
Right.
I've done less than that at the pool.
Right. Well, no, yeah, but
I was fully dressed.
technically, it was
Shorts and a tank top.
she was getting fitted for some medical equipment,
Mhm.
and this young man came over.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Mhm.
So the stalker. So where did the idea of the stalker come from? I mean, it's kind of random. It's kind of wild and crazy.
I love the absurdity of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you. He's there for a reason, though. In my past life, I was founder and president of an international nonprofit agency for a very serious illness. And 3 weeks into that career, I acquired a stalker, and that went on for quite a few years. And so from that experience, once I finally you kind of get over the PTSD of the whole thing, I'm just like, I need revenge. And I needed revenge by bringing a stalker into the show and sort of making him benign.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Taking a
Yeah.
situation.
Cool.
Own it.
Yeah.
Taking the bad situation of your life and turning it into something funny, and actually provide some education about stalking along the way too. We do in future seasons.
Interesting.
Good.
So there's more there than just the gag. Then.
Yes, there is.
And
Yes,
there will be
but
future
very
seasons.
gently and very humorously the whole time.
Do you have future seasons?
We do. We have 8 seasons planned for the Smartlys.
Oh.
We're 70% done with season 2 right now of the production. And I'm a third of the way done with writing season 3.
Are you
So-
sticking with the same production style? Like that was like lockdown production, right?
It was lockdown production, and we're keeping it that way because
Cool.
I have extremely severe autoimmune disease. And with the various levels of COVID and other illnesses going around, we figured that it was safest for our entire team
Yeah.
to
Give it-
continue to produce
Develop.
this in lockdown status.
Gives it a Pee-wee's Playhouse kind of vibe somehow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the majority of our actors have never even met each other.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually true on a lot of movies, though.
Yeah.
Not so much TV shows, but on movies.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times actors will say, I never met him. Or in a movie, they didn't meet him.
Yeah, they shot at different times or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
not too uncommon.
I think that might have been true of Margot Robbie and Brad Pitt in
Babylon.
No, not
Once
the
Upon
you
a
Upon a
wouldn't see.
Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It could be. Yeah.
because I don't know if there were any scenes with her and Brad Pitt. I know there was a scene with her and
I think there was when they went to
what's
Spawn
his name?
Ranch.
no, Margot Robbie was never at Spawn Ranch.
Yeah.
Not her. Her character wasn't. No.
Well, you know the
Uh-uh.
It
show.
wasn't actually Spawn Ranch, I guess, but
Well,
whatever they called it. Yeah.
right.
Another old TV show just came to mind too that the Smartlys seems to remind me of a little bit. Mary Hartman. Just kind of the bizarre nature of it.
So happy that you said that because I absolutely adored Mary Hartman, and I thought it was very unique among shows.
Yeah.
The subsequent thing to that was soap. And so some people, referred to us as, we're sort of like soap. I was like the nearest show that they could relate us to being. But I really love the essence of the Mary Hartman, and Louise Lasser was just out of this world.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I was absolutely like, I was really little when she like got into the actual dollhouse. Remember when she like got into the dollhouse and was like, I was like, that was so bizarre. The behavior was so bizarre. It just freaked me out when it was.
Drowning a bowl of soup on that show.
Yeah, exactly. Drowning in the bowl of chicken noodle soup. Oh my God. I thought that was one of the.
I mean, it's impossible to drown.
Yeah. And Bert on the other show you mentioned though. So was Comic Genius and
Richard Mulligan. Yeah.
Richard Mulligan. Yeah. And of course, who was the redheaded lady?
The other one.
Jessica.
Yeah.
Played Jessica.
The character is Jessica Tate. Yeah.
She was amazing too.
She's who's the boss lady too.
Right.
She was Mona.
Yeah, she's really good.
Oh, well,
what is her? Catherine Hellman.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
So many. We could go down the line, but we're talking about the Smartlys here, not Toby. So
you can also see like
talking about what we perceive as influences on the Smartlys.
That's true.
Right. And George and Gracie were actually, it's funny that you mentioned them because they were the inspiration for the Smartlys.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just kind of see it as George and Gracie off their Ritalin.
Or on it, depending on the situation and the episode.
So do you actually live in San Diego or La Jolla, that area?
Actually, yeah. Well, the show is based in La Jolla on 1200 Coast Highway in an imaginary place called Smartlyville. Yeah. Oh, of course. It has to be, right? And we actually live in Old Leucadia, which is a little north of San Diego. It's on the coast.
I'm 3 counties away from you. I'm in Ventura County, Thousand Oaks.
Oh, how wonderful. Well, you can come down and visit us anytime, Aaron.
Yeah. One of these days, I'll get down that way.
Yeah. Come and take a grand tour of the studios.
Yeah.
He likes to hike a lot.
Well, if anything, doesn't San Diego have even more canyons and even more rocky environment than...
I don't know.
So maybe if you go to East County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I've always heard it's like, a lot of people I've talked to said it's like paradise. Like that is the jewel of California, San Diego. I don't know.
Absolutely. I can't even envision a more beautiful, wonderful place to live. And the weather is absolutely insanely gorgeous. And especially for somebody from Minnesota, you can't even imagine what it's like to move to a land where it's all, where it rains sunshine.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Especially this time of year. It's going to be like -0 on Friday. But
thank goodness I work from home.
You need to come out and visit us in San Diego.
yeah.
You got me.
Yeah. Well, why don't we talked a little bit about the show, but why don't you give us just a little bit of a synopsis that will either for people that are listening to go out and, listen to the whole show, the whole podcast, or
at least a setup or an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Okay. The Smartlys, we are king and queen of the Minnesota Renaissance Fair. And we win $300 million and buy our son's luxury beachfront complex in San Diego, where our entire family lives on the shores of La Jolla Cove. And everybody conspires to try to part us from our money. by hook or by crook. And so every episode has somebody trying to do us in. And also, I know that Eric has an identical twin brother, Preston, who lives in our building. And Preston wants to have a marriage made in heaven, just like ours. And so I figured that the only way for him to get a marriage made in heaven is for him to be dead. You can't have that down here on earth, right? And so every day I send Eric out to try to kill his brother. Meanwhile, of course, his brother is trying to kill us. And so it's a kind of a melodramatic farce. And it's a circle that keeps on spinning around. And we're frozen in time so that every day throughout the entire 8 seasons, our 50th anniversary is the next day.
Yeah. Well, it's got kind of a Shakespearean angle to it also, when you think about it. Plotting for murder and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned, is it Patterson? Brother of Eric?
Oh, Eric's brother is Preston. Preston.
And that's
and he's a former golf pro. He's a greedy, narcissistic, sociopathic, histrionic former golf pro. And Eric's supposedly twin brother. They're both convinced that they're identical twins, although as you'll see, they're entirely different.
Yeah. So he's kind of like Jack Nicklaus or somebody. Obviously, Tiger Woods.
Wow.
Narcissistic,
Narcissistic.
So, but yeah, I mean,
I don't think he was as successful as Jack Nicklaus or Tiger Woods, but yeah, he is a former golf pro.
Exactly.
Happy Gilmore's nemesis. Maybe he was more like that. Shooter
McGavin.
Yeah. But you mentioned that it had we experienced it 2 different ways, and in the podcast, definitely. To me, I hate to say that I was more engaged listening to it, but it did harken back to the old radio days. And I was thinking of do you remember even though you all got along so well, it still kind of reminded me of the Bickersons,
The pace.
early, I guess, or
Pretty high density of jokes. It seems like a lot of jokes in a
that's a lot of writing.
period of time.
right.
Like 30 Rock kind of did that too. They'd have, joke. It's like, wow, that's a lot to take in. You just got to sit back and think about what you just saw and laugh about it.
You're not going to get them the first time around. You're not going to get them the first time around because there are layers and layers and layers.
Yeah.
And there's buildups in the first episode for jokes that take place in the 8th episode.
Oh,
and
wow.
continuing on, we've even planted things in the first episode for the very last episode. So, so I love callback jokes and things that make sense as you go along.
Yeah.
And to kind of keep us all on our toes. There's some jokes in the show, actually, that I didn't even get when I wrote them. And then I wake up at 3:00 in the morning going, oh my God, that's hilarious. I didn't even know it was there. And these are like a boomerang jokes.
It's another level.
Another level, yeah. Yeah, they've even snuck in past me. Yeah,
It's kind of a collaborative effort, but would you say that you know the entirety of the series right now? You know how the last episode is going to end, right?
Yes.
Do you feel like that's helpful as far as doing dialogue and driving the story along? I mean, knowing that you ultimately know what it's going to be like at the end. I mean, how does that affect your creativity
moving forward?
I think it's absolutely essential. And I don't know how other TV producers even manage to do shows without knowing where the beginning, the middle, and the end of their story is.
Mhm.
And I think that we've really cut an awful lot of productivity off right at the pass in recent years, maybe even recent decades, by not giving the creators the platform that they need to really tell their story. When you're cutting a show off after the first or second episode, you haven't even scratched the scratch of what's going to go on or could come out of that creator.
Characters haven't developed at all yet. Yeah.
The characters aren't even developed. And so it really helped me to know this is where I need to get the characters to by the end of the 64th show. And you can see that the show moves along at a very rapid pace because we have a lot of ground to cover. and a lot of character development to go on to keep the funny coming.
It's brisk.
Yeah, it is. And that's one of the reasons it's galloping, is because it knows where the end is and it has to get there, as opposed to a show where it was just open-ended and maybe we were writing just one episode at a time until you get the funding for the next episode, and you might be cut off at the third episode. So what should you do with your story?
Yeah, like Larry David's. I don't know if I'll have another season when I get an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you have like that high level view of what's going on, if you have the outline of what's going to happen, that gives you, I guess, more freedom to fill in, everything else with color, with the comedy, of course, and the, character development and stuff like that.
Kind of like writing a paper without an outline.
Right.
Or like writing a paper with an outline.
Well, no, when you're using an outline, I'm saying it would be more difficult without the outline.
Yeah, without having the end.
And that's what a lot of TV creators are in for. They're literally writing without an outline, or they have a group of 12 people who are responsible for writing the next episode, and everybody has a different idea. Well, I'm only a single creator and I have a single vision where it is and where it needs to go. I don't need to have any fights around the writing table about, what we can include or not include, or where this character should go or not go. So it makes it for a very smooth and very streamlined process.
Everything really tightly scripted, or do you ever have ad libs? Or does that happen in the writing room?
Question. We're very tightly scripted.
Seems like at that pace you'd have to be.
Well, it does have to, because every word in the show is really a setup. It's either a development of the character or a setup for a joke. And so even the smallest verbal change can really throw off the show. However, we do have a brilliant cast. Half of our cast is stand-up comedians, as you can probably tell. And sometimes they have some hilarious ideas, usually for the final punch or a little line
on a joke or something.
Yeah. And so we do tell them in those cases to go ahead and film what they're inspired to do, as well as film the actual script. And then that way we can make an editing decision later on, as long as they know that we love absolutely everything that they do.
That's right. I keep forgetting everybody's remote. Yeah.
Yeah. We have the most talented cast, and I just, every one of them are like a Gilligan in their own right, I think.
Probably you end up with fewer bloopers without people, if people don't send them to you, right?
And how we don't get the bloopers. Yeah, we don't get the bloopers, but
You assume that everyone's a Gilligan harkens back to Gilligan's Island.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a story I know about Bob Denver. His contract was up and he needed to ask for things and he didn't know what to ask for. So he is why later seasons, the song says the Professor and Mary Ann instead of the rest.
Oh, yeah.
The reason they changed the theme song?
Yep. He put it into his contract.
Huh.
Never knew that.
I'm not sure they didn't have to pay for his weed too, which was probably way more expensive than changing the song. What? Bob Denver smoking weed? Shut up, Lisa.
Yeah. So
yeah. Are there any particular characters that you related to in the Smartlys?
I was curious about Eric. Is he Scottish? I assume he's Scottish, right?
He is actually, he's in the room with me now. Yes, he is Scottish. He's from Glasgow.
Hi, Eric.
Oh, okay.
Hello, Eric. We love your work.
Yeah. He does a great job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Of course, your character, you and him together, you seem to have really good chemistry, It's like, and Preston, of course. Yeah. The intrigue, it seems like everybody is scheming, each scene is, or scheming to try to take advantage of your situation there with all that.
I like the older granddaughter. I have the intense feeling that they are going to be showing clips of the Smartlys and she's on some serious show winning an Oscar,
Oh, she is totally amazing. Our entire cast, okay? And one of the songs that she's wrote is called What Will It Take? She's totally amazing. You have to look her up. Her real name is Willow Seisha, which is Seixas, as in at the end. And
just like it sounds.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So we're trying to actually, she's doing progressively more singing in the show, especially in season 2. And then in season 3, her character gets developed even more. We're trying to catch up to her in the show, and give some justification for how she suddenly became such an astounding singer. So,
and take advantage of the singing while you can too.
Right.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that she won an award. Why don't you brag a little bit? Because I know that the show has received a lot of
kudos,
accolades, and awards.
Within, we just came out this year, of course. We were first released, just had a small release on Plex in April. And then in August, we came out on Tubi. And in the meantime, we've won over a dozen international film awards, mostly for comedy. One of the film awards, we won the whole enchilada. We were at the top of and
was that like a film festival?
A film festivals, yes.
So did it show all 8 episodes as a feature?
No, it only showed the first one.
Okay.
The
So
first
like a short
retirement party was the one that won the entire fest.
Okay.
Which is great because we're comedy, and comedy doesn't usually get very much traction in any kind of film thing because they look for more serious, avant-garde sort of things. And we're really
you're avant-garde.
Oh, thank you. I wanted to bring that classic comedy, but with a Smartly twist. So I wanted the really hard hitting, where they really focused on the writing, like back with the George Burns and Gracie Allen. They spent 10 years in vaudeville. They really knew how to entertain before they were entertaining on TV. So I wanted the really strong writing, but I wanted it to be fast enough for today's limited attention spans.
It is. Thank
you. Yeah. So it's a hard thing to balance, but we have like 20 scenes in every episode of 20 minutes. So we try to not give people any opportunity to be bored. Yeah. But it's also not the kind of show that you can just sit back and casually watch with,
when you're playing your game.
Right.
You're going to miss it. I mean, you can still enjoy it if you only catch 1 or 2 of the humorous situations. But if you really want to get it, you really need to almost watch it and listen to it. You catch more of it listening to it, I think.
Honestly, I could have used another commercial break for my eyeballs to take a rest at one point.
Well, that's where the podcast comes in.
That's what I was about to say. The podcast is really, becomes highly recommended also.
Thank you.
You might, I would venture to say you might watch an episode one night, and then the next day you turn on the podcast and listen to it again, and you capture some stuff that your eyes get mesmerized by things while you're watching the show. I
think I'd do it the other way around. I'd listen and then I'd go back and watch.
Me too.
Okay.
And then you get to see the stalker.
It's like 2 different.
You already heard the words. So
Right.
it's not as important if you miss it the second time, then you can pay attention to the visuals.
Yeah, because there's a lot going on. And me, I'm like, as my mom said, easily distracted by bright, shiny objects. But we just spoke to someone the other day who said he has a tendency to squirrel. Just love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that from now on. I have a tendency to squirrel. It's one of the reasons why I don't drive. I can see me now going squirrel, film.
Yeah. Who was that? That was our writer from Seattle.
It was Dylan Quarles.
Quarles. Yeah, he used that term.
Yeah.
But he was pretty good with words.
It was in his book too.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we
he's not just a writer, he's a publisher, he's done some filmmaking.
Right.
He's a busy boy.
We should point out that the podcast has something the TV show doesn't. And that is after the episodes, we go into interviews by the cast members talking about behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. I always like that.
You don't get in the TV version of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always used to love those features they would make about the making of the films, like Indiana Jones and Star Wars. And extras you get on DVDs and stuff that you really don't see as much anymore,
Have you considered in future seasons doing a 9th episode, sort of a past, like a Zoom meeting almost with the whole cast?
Oh, that would be a really fun thing. I'll tell the cast that you thought of that.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
We're close, so I've gotten to the point where meetings are actually not as much of a chore because I'm speaking to other humans.
Yeah. So Eric's from Glasgow. I'd have to say I've never met anyone from Glasgow. But so what is it? Soccer? I mean, how long has he been here? There he is. I could do.
Isn't he fabulous?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Photo bombing from Glasgow.
Zoom bombing the podcast here. So what's
There's a fun story about Eric, and that is that when I came up with the idea for the Smartlys, within 30 days, we had done our first sizzle clip.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And then 6 months later, we produced our first pilot, which was on stage in front of a live audience in a senior center. And the next month was when I met Eric. And so although we played a long married couple in the show for 50 years, we were actually just boyfriend and girlfriend. When I met him, I had thought, oh my God, he could be a comedic genius. He is just marvelous,
yeah.
And he said, don't look at me. I am not an actor. I am not a comedian. I'm really proud to support you in your efforts as a stand-up comedian and as an actress, but do not look at me. I am not comfortable in front of the camera. This is never happening. And so I'm like, oh, okay, Joe. But then when the pandemic hit, we could no longer produce on stage in front of a live audience in a senior center. And I had to throw out everything that we had done and start all over again. And at that point, I looked to Eric and I said, hey, I can't perform with anybody else in lockdown. Could you please try? And he cut a couple of tapes with me, and he was a hit. He's total natural from the get-go.
Awesome.
The very first tape that we produced. Say thank you, Eric.
Wait a minute. Are we live?
We're live.
We're not live.
We're actually
live.
not live.
We're live to tape.
Yeah.
I can tell you the truth.
No.
No.
Phil can edit any of this out.
Yeah.
It's not streaming live.
Start editing film.
I said, I'm not a comedian. I'm not an actor. And you know what she said? I'm the writer. I can write the part for a Scottish asshole. So you just play yourself.
Yourself. You're natural. It comes right through.
So he doesn't have to act at all. That is Eric, if you can believe it. When you watch the show, that's Eric.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's me too.
Right for the strengths.
And you guys are really good. But that reminds me, you got a background in comedy, right? As stand-up comedy, right?
I became a stand-up comedian at age 69.
Wow.
Wow.
As a 69-year-old arthritic widow, I took to the stand-up comedy stage for the very first time.
That's amazing.
Minnesota or California?
I did that in California. And the important part of that is I never would have done that in Minnesota.
Wow.
Because, icy roads and snow and late at night and cold.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
I don't get along with any of that. But I was able to do that because of living in San Diego, where it's always gorgeous weather every day.
Yeah.
Are you a night owl? It seems like a late night kind of gig.
Comedy is very much of a late night kind of thing. And I'm not a late night type of person. But, you do what you have to.
Yeah.
And what happened to me was when my late husband passed away, after having had a lung transplant and then leukemia, it was very serious. And I'm like, I need to laugh. I have to laugh again.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks after he passed away, I started going to stand-up comedy shows. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I started going to stand-up comedy shows almost every single night of the week. And I did that for 4 years before I actually took to the stage myself.
So you studied comedy in depth.
It's like accidentally,
She absorbed it. Yeah.
I just absorbed it, every fiber of my being. I fell in love with every single stand-up comedian in San Diego and beyond. And I don't think that comedy is one of the very few arts it is only, it's a live art. And if you haven't seen stand-up comedy in person, you have not seen stand-up comedy. I don't care if you watch the videotapes of the best comedians in the world. If you haven't been in a live audience laughing with them,
Yeah. Well,
you haven't.
You're such a nice lady. You got, such a kind face. Do you ever get heckled? Did you ever have to deal with an unruly audience or somebody that was giving you a hard time? That's been like the biggest thing.
And
once, but
follow up. Did you
this
work
goes
fluid?
by the definition of heckle.
Right.
And heckle is any interruption in a set by a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
Because although we try to make it look like it's all off the cuff and happening in the moment and things like that, it's really extremely rehearsed.
Yeah.
Even Robin Williams, he was extremely rehearsed. He knew every single word that was going to come out of his mouth long before it ever did. And so any interruption in a set by the audience, even if it's a positive comment, can really throw the comedian off. They can forget where they were, what joke they were on, and it can throw off the tempo of the entire show. Well, in my very first live real show where I was, paid to be a stand-up comedian, I started off by saying something that I was 69 years old. I was 69 years old. And a guy from the back yelled out, "Looking pretty good." The worst heckle that I've had.
That threw you off a little bit. Had to recover.
No, I was able to take that one in stride. I mean, who couldn't when you're
Excellent.
69 years old and somebody
Yeah.
says you're pretty good? I mean, that's where you want to be.
Reminds me
Good heckle.
of an SNL skit where the lady keeps going, "I'm 50 years old.
Fitting.
50 years old."
I'm fitting.
And she'd do like a somersault or something.
Karate
we-
kick. Yeah.
Yeah. Saw Bill Burr recently at a huge venue for a comedian. It was, Riverfront Coliseum. But he was in the middle of his act, and there's somebody over to the side of the stage that said something just audible enough for him to hear it. And he said, "What? I can't hear you." And then the guy repeated it a little bit louder. He still couldn't hear him. Finally just said, "Forget you, I'm done." And now that what you're saying, that's just what you're talking about. He had to get on with his skit. I'm sure he had a comeback if he could have played off of what he actually said, but it's almost like performing a concert where you're doing a set list. And if you got interrupted, it would probably just completely discombobulate you, I guess.
Well, and they were filming it
Yeah.
for a potential special.
You think of a comedian like him, like he's going to take this heckler and he's going to destroy him, but he had nothing, it was completely dead air because he couldn't understand what the guy did.
Or maybe he was just pretending.
But
not
he was a
to
little
be.
agitated. You could tell he was a little
Yeah.
agitated. Yeah, he was a little agitated.
Well, he had said, please don't interrupt because we're filming this.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And that is important. And it's very important from
We
a tempo
took your cell
standpoint.
phones and everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they took our cell phones,
Oh, yeah.
put them in special little pouches, gave the pouches to us.
And what I really love about the difference between the TV and the stand-up comedy is with TV, you know what the tempo should be and you can keep it there because you have control over the editing, but you don't necessarily have that with a live show.
Right. So who was, as you were on the comedy trail, who is a comedian that you experienced that you thought was just amazing and someone we may not have never heard of?
Well, actually, I saw one of the very first performances of Taylor Tomlinson. If you haven't seen her, look her up. She's absolutely fantastic. I think I saw her when she was like 19 years old, maybe younger. She's on the national circuit now and on TV and has had her own show. And also another one I saw one of the very first performances of was Drew Lynch. And I got to tell you, both of them from the get-go, right out of the gate, were fantastic. And Drew Lynch arrived at the show that I went to. He was hit in the head by a baseball when he was maybe about 20. And so it changed the whole course of his life, having a severe stutter as a result of it. And so, but even with a severe stutter, that is no joke, he has become a fantastic and very well-known comedian to this day. Look him up, Drew Lynch, Lynch.
Okay. On the other hand, have you shared the stage or preceded someone to the stage that we may be very familiar with? Very, like
me personally, probably not. Maybe because I did mostly work in San Diego,
local.
So not too many of them would be comedians, but yeah. So I'm not very good at name dropping. I guess we'll have to put on my resume. Fails at name dropping.
Fails to name drop.
Yeah. Did you become part of?
You dropped some names.
Thank you.
Marin talks about
Drew and Drew. What was Drew's last name?
Drew Lynch.
Drew Lynch.
Tomlinson.
Right.
And Taylor Tom. Yes.
But Marin would talk about how these comedians at the end of shows that they started becoming it was like a fraternity. Him and like Rogan and different, Louis C.K. and guys that were contemporaries of his. Did it get to be that way where you were seeing the same comedians?
The comedy specifically.
The comedy circuit is actually a lot smaller than you think it is. The whole community is a lot smaller and very, very close. And I'm thoroughly in love with every stand-up comedian in San Diego.
Yeah.
Just so admire the raw guts that it takes to get up on a stage and to try to make people laugh. Whether the people laugh or not is beside the point. That person tried.
Oh, yeah. It's one of the most courageous things you can do, I think.
Yeah.
It's not.
I haven't had the guts to do it.
Probably not physically dangerous, but
yet.
But unless you're Chris Rock, I guess. But so that's always fascinates me. The culture, the comedy culture. The Comedy Store documentary was really good and kind of depicted. One last question about comedy. Anybody ever steal your act, or anybody ever steal any part of your act, and you're sitting there and you're watching it and you're like,
I don't think so. I would certainly expect many of them to pick up on different bits of the Smartlys and try to steal it. And I was never concerned about that because I know a lot of comedians, they have one set and they develop it very slowly over very many years. And that's their headlining set. And they repeat that every night of the week. But I am such a prolific writer that it was really hard for me to stick with one set. I always had ideas for, a better joke and a better set, a better thing. And that was what actually helped draw me into doing the TV series because I had so many ideas that it was too confining to stick with one set. And so it's glorious being able to work with the Smartlys and such talented actors and comedians and have them bring that to life is just the most amazing thing you can even imagine.
Yeah.
Is any of your stand-up available anywhere?
Pardon me?
Is any of your stand-up available anywhere?
No, not anymore.
Nothing
because
on YouTube
I'm not able to do stand-up now.
Yeah, I know, but any recordings?
I think there might be a bad old one.
You're wincing. Okay.
I say bad, but it's just bad relative to,
I just audio even. I'm just wondering how similar
it's very similar
to your show.
Very similar to the show. Okay. Yeah, because it's my style.
So did you go out there just kind of in character?
No, I went out there as me. I didn't have my crazy ponytails on each side. Yeah, nobody talked about my crazy hair.
Yeah.
Well, as we kind of wind down here a little bit.
Well, okay. You mentioned your immune illness earlier. Yes. And I love your motto. For me personally, I'm going through some health issues. Do what you can see. I really like that. Yeah. Take a step, one step. If that's all you can do, great. You did one step.
Yeah.
And if you can't do 2 steps tomorrow, you can do 1 step again.
We heard you use that quote on a couple different podcasts. And yeah, it resonated with us.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
because we got a few steps ahead of us right now. So we're trying to look not too far ahead. Just take one.
Here's
One goal
Tony.
is fine.
Let Tony be on the podcast. We'll take off the towel.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry that you have things to adjust to.
Yes. Hey, I'm trying to
glad
have
you're back
positive
home now.
attitude throughout.
What'd you say, Aaron?
I said, I'm glad you're back home, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in the
microphone not
hospital
working.
for a solid month.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, I tried to take my knee out.
Oh dear.
Yeah, pile driver dropped 345 pounds on it.
Yeah, she hurt her knee really bad
Yeah.
in rehab for
Nobody laughs
30
at that
days.
joke.
It hurts. It hurts too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Knee meets hardwood floor, not a good solution.
So a lot of what you had to say was inspirational to
Yeah,
us, right?
very much
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, it was very.
I like it too
Poignant.
much. You can see. I'm hoping that we can adjust to the increments and not look, to have things be at the end. Just
Don't look at the big picture. I mean, I did the entire,
Unless
TV
you're doing a TV show, then you have to know the end.
well,
Yeah.
yeah. But I want the end, but
night.
you can know the end that you want. You can have a positive attitude and work towards that end. And if you don't get to the
So I have
end,
to take a step at a time to get there.
something that someone said once was having a child with a handicap is like, to them, it was like planning a trip to Europe, planning a trip to France and ending up in Holland. It's still a really nice place.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
different. Yeah, just different.
Lisa says, "Do what you see." To me, she's
Mhm.
talking about the bathroom work that needs to be done and
That's
in the driveway.
what she sees.
Yeah, that's what she.
We would be better. I would be better off if the bathroom if we didn't have a tub,
Right.
if we just had a shower.
There's some work that needs to
Because
be.
I have a little bit of difficulty getting in and out of a tub
Yeah.
with my orthopedic issues.
So.
Right.
Or-
Bathroom seats work really good too.
Yeah. Well,
We need to find a plumbing sponsor for.
Yeah.
Oh, good idea.
Right. We're going to be on. We're going to be on. We're going to be on it. But what are some? I know you got at least one future project you're working on, where you kind of take a book that you wrote quite a while ago, and you're possibly turning that into a film or a TV project or something, right?
Yeah, over 25 years ago, I was bedridden and in a wheelchair for a year, and it was kind of boring, to say the least. And so what I did to entertain myself was I wrote a romance novel by candlelight, actually, because even overhead lights bothered me at the time. And after I got better, I put it away at the shelf. Didn't really think about it for the last umpteen years. But our director and producer, Floyd Strayer, who is absolutely wonderful, he read the book and fell in love with it. And so we're also going to be producing we believe it'll be a movie. It could also be just a limited series. And that our working title on that is called Struck by Lightning. And it's a very fun, very romantic comedy. So I think one thing that has never changed is I didn't realize even way back then in the book, there is this little red-headed woman who is a receptionist in a radio station. I used to work in radio, and she becomes a stand-up comedian.
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
And then this is like 25 years ago. I was writing about this little redhead that worked in a radio station becoming a stand-up comedian. And I'd never even seen a stand-up comedian in person. I'd never been to stand-up comedy until.
Pretty
Foreshadowing your
powerful.
Yeah. So it's kind of like spooky at the same time for me.
Good
Yeah.
manifesting.
Little bit. Yeah. Destiny.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of in a strange way.
The way the receptionist?
Like the
like my younger redhead than me.
kind of like the principles of a vision board.
Doesn't have to be. Character revision happens all the time.
Principle of what?
Of like
Yeah.
a vision board. where you
Yeah.
put, post things you wave on like a poster, how you want it to be. And then
I had a creepy
look
thing
at it.
happen with that too years ago.
Yeah.
Because one of our friends said, "Oh, you need to go out and take pictures of everything that you want when you grow up," And we went out and took pictures of, oh, this would be a fun place to live, and this would be a nice cat to have, and then just random pictures, and we put them in a notebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the notebook 10 years later, stuffed away in the closet. And we had taken a picture of a building that would be nice to live in. Not only were we living in that building, but we were living in the exact unit that the windows were in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, 10 years before, and completely forgotten about. And we'd taken a picture of a ceramic cat that was orange. And we had an orange real cat instead of the ceramic. I mean, it's just the whole thing was just like, oh my God, that exact spot on Earth, it was where we ended up. So be careful when you're doing your vision boards. Don't put in things in there that you don't want, because they might really come true.
Well, apparently you did want them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was lucky.
That may be the cat. I mean, I don't know. I don't think Phillips is thrilled to have cats, But then he grew up allergic to cats, and I found out he could have Siamese. So we have a snowshoe Siamese and a lynx Siamese.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, the story of the cats is in the show, we're called the Smartlys. Well, that's because I used to have a stalker. And so when I became a stand-up comedian, I couldn't use my real name. I was still going very much undercover. You won't find anything very much of me or my personal life for like a long time on the internet, because I was under the gun of the stalker. And so when I became a stand-up comedian, I needed a stage name. And so I turned to my stray cat and I stole my name from him. And his name was Dr. Elliot Smartly. He was so smart. And so the show is the namesake of my stray cat. And you'll see him in the very first opening show of the Smartlys. And in a lot of the background scenes, you'll see him sitting there licking his butt.
Yeah, that's exactly perfect for the show.
Right. One of those mesmerizing things you see when you watch it on
Not to
TV.
mention, every time you try to take a cat's picture, if it notices,
Yeah.
that's what it does.
And one of the things that's one of the reasons that you miss a lot of jokes when you're watching the show is because
you're staring at a cat.
There's
And
Someone here to see.
the cat or the stalker or the little kittens.
Right.
Yeah, or the seals, and
the seals
while
are
the
awesome.
show is going on, right?
Oh yeah, I love the intro with the seals.
Yeah.
they're in some of the segments too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you'll see them.
Yeah,
because they're-
you do miss stuff.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
but
think you're in listen the night
It might have
before.
been. It might have been after the second episode when they.
the nice thing is that you can go back and listen to it over and over, and you can hit the pause button when you need to. I figured that's why God created the pause button.
That's right.
And one of the reasons that it does move so quickly is because we don't have any laugh track
Mhm.
as well. We were
Just a little.
just a little do at the end of a scene. Yeah. And if you can't get your laugh in there, you're going to have to hit the pause button.
Yeah.
No, it's gonna rain
Oh.
and or snow.
Well, Shelley, it's been a great hour. We really enjoyed it. I knew we would. After looking at all your stuff, I knew it was going to be a fun time. Is there anything you want to promote? Any websites or social media?
Upcoming.
Yes. People should follow the Smartlys and just go to our website, thesmartlys.com, SMARTLYS, and it's always a the in front of it. Look us up on Tubi, just look for The Smartlys, or on Plex TV. But if you just go to our website, thesmartlys.com, it has a link to all of the different TV platforms that we're on for free. We're streaming worldwide for free. And it also has a link to all of the podcasts. And our podcasts also not only have all the 8 episodes of the shows so far, but behind the scenes interviews with our actors as well.
Awesome.
So you can get to know all of them while you're waiting for season 2.
Excellent. All right.
All right.
Very cool. The Smartlys.com, Smartlys.
Yes,
Smartlys.
you got that. Thank you so much for repeating it too.
Yeah.
Well, we're over 50.
And please like us on social media and, put the word. We need all the help. We're these shows. So it's not easy being in the indie comedy series.
Right.
Well, we appreciate you coming on a very, very
High end,
Cincinnati podcast.
professionally produced podcast.
Yeah, right.
Honor and a pleasure.
Yeah, Nettles.
Peter. So excited to meet you.
It's nice to meet you, Shelley.
It's been a lot of fun.
I'm
What else?
feeling that way.
You have a good night.
Thank you very much. Take care. Maybe
Right.
we'll see you again when we're kicking off season 2.
Absolutely. We love
Absolutely.
that.
We'd love
That
that.
would be so much fun.
Yep.
All right.
We'll have you back.
And I'll
Cool.
tell them about the Zoom party. Cast will love that.
Yeah.
Cool. Take
All right.
care.
Okay.
Good night, Shelley.
We have social.
Twitter,
Yeah, pod.
Instagram,
Yeah, pod.
Facebook,
Yeah, pod.
website.
www.YEAH-UH-HUH.com. So let us know. Hit us back. Have a great week.